So, yes, all right. Hello, all. Welcome to Get Set Law. So, let's get started. So, in this video, in this session, in this live, we will be talking about NLSAT paper. So, this is going to be something very important for all of us because the exam is scheduled. So, now, when you log into your portal, when you log into your NLSIO portal, you will see that some of the sample papers have been uploaded, right? So in today's session, we'll be talking about those sample papers. So in today's session, I'll be solving one sample paper and I'll help you understand that this is how you go about solving a sample paper. Now, I want all of you to come back to this video after today's streaming, come back to this video, try solving the other sets of papers and try to mention your scores, how much you have scored in those papers, right? So without any further delay, let's get started. All right. So I have logged into my portal, right, to my registration portal. And here, once you log in, you will see the links activated for three sample paper. So I will go to sample question set one, and I have opened this question set here. So when you open this question set, you will see that this is a kind of replica for your paper that you will be getting during your exam. Now, this is for you to practice for this exam. I would suggest a tip from my end for all of you that please make sure that before you go and attempt your exam, you all are solving all these sample papers. These sample papers will give you an idea about the level of difficulty of exam, about the type of questions that will be asked in exam, and a lot more. So, just a tip from my end that make sure that you are solving all these three sample papers. Now, moving further from here, so this here, when you will open the sample paper, so here you will see that certain instructions are given for attempting both part 1 and part A and part B. Remember, mark this, that for each question, so every question for part A is going to be of 1 mark. All right. And for every incorrect answer as well as unattempted question, there will be a deduction of 0.25 marks. So what does that mean? That you are supposed to attempt everything. You're supposed to attempt each and every question. All right, you're supposed to attempt each and every question because irrespective, there will be a negative marking. So why not to take a chance? So even if you don't know an answer for some question, make sure that you are attempting it. Okay. Now, just a heads up when you are appearing for the exam, make sure that you have read all of these instructions very carefully, very properly, because these instructions are going to come in handy about the paper, the marking scheme, and all of it, and you will get those time to read these instructions, right? Now, part A is your multiple choice question, and similarly, you'll get multiple choice question in your exams as well, in your actual exam. Now, once you go and you see the passages, so here the sample paper which is uploaded, it contains 40 MCQs. It is not a full-fledged paper, but it is kind of a paper which is going to give you an idea about how your actual paper will be. Okay, so we will be solving the first passage of the sample paper here. Now, there are certain things that I want you to do. All right, I will help you, and we will be solving this first sample paper together, first set together. I want all of you to go back and do something. The rest of the three passages after this, I want you all to apply those tricks, apply those tips that I'm going to give you when I'm solving this first passage while solving rest of the three passages. Come back to this video in the comment section, mark your scores that these are my scores for the three passages, and then we can understand and figure out what else needs to be done. That is going to be the first thing. Second, I will also help you in understanding how you can structure your answer for part B, because your part B also contains 75 marks. So how you can structure your answer, what are the things that you have to focus upon, the ideal way to answer a descriptive question, all of these things that I will also help you here in this session, right? And similarly, we have another such session where I'll be solving another sample paper as well with you all. So there are three sample papers. So we'll be solving two sample papers here. So make sure that you are present for both the sample paper solving. All right. So make sure that you are present for both the sample paper solving. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, because that is how you will get the information about any of the upcoming event, any of the upcoming live sessions where you can ask all your questions, where you can get all the clarity about the exams, right? So without further delay, let's get started. So when we go forward and we start reading this first passage, all right. So this first passage is talking about something where we say that, okay, casteism and racism. So it is talking about the fact that whether we should internationalize casteism as an issue. All right. Here, author is also mentioning about the fact that, see, untouchability and casteism should not be highlighted separately, because it is something which is already covered in racial discrimination. So it is, they are here when they when the author, here when you read this passage, you will see that author is first of all talking about why India has prohibited casteism and caste discrimination, why Indian government is opposed to this idea that we should we should go and we should raise this issue of untouchability and casteism before UN, right? That is there. Then you will see that the passage further moves on and discuss about author's viewpoint as well. So you will see, on the other hand, I would argue. So you will also see author's viewpoint here as well. So you read this passage. Now, in order to read the passage, you will need 1 minute. So start reading, start having that reading habit, read different genres of article, right? So read this passage in a minute, try to understand what this passage is talking about. Now we'll come to the questions. So when you see the first question itself, the first question is talking about what is the central argument of the author. Understand this. When you read the passage has two perspectives. One, it is talking about why India is opposed to this particular idea, and second, it is also expressing author's viewpoint as well. So now you have to read the question very carefully. This is where the trick is, all right? So because sometimes we are in a hurry, we are in a rush, we often tend to miss out on reading the questions properly. So you read the question, see that, okay, it is talking about the central argument of the author, right? So now let us read the options. First option is talking about that casteism should be included in category of racism or racism related discrimination at the level of UN, as it is a form of systematic discrimination just like racism. That is there. Second, casteism should not be included in category of racism or racism related discrimination at the level of UN, as it would dilute the struggle against racism. This is what you will see that the author is arguing. You will see, sorry, not this, but as I mentioned, that the author is further talking about about casteism. Author is also talking about the idea that these issues should be raised. These issues should be categorized. They should have a separate category here. So here you will see that, okay, casteism should be included in category of racism or racism related discrimination at the level of UN, since casteism is merely a social problem. This is completely against, you will see option A and option C is completely against author's argument. Now let us read option D. Casteism should not be included in category of racism or racism related discrimination. Uh, at the level of UN, but it should be recognized as separate category of crime. Now, how do we recognize our answer? So read this particular part where we are talking about author's argument, right? I would argue that treating casteism and untouchability as a form of racism would have the effect of obscuring the specificity of caste and casteism. So, how do you answer this? So, whenever we are talking about author's argument here, we go back, we refer to the passage which is talking about author's argument. You read this particular argument and you see that author is stating that, see, we should not. Here, we should not include it in the category of racism and racism related discrimination. Rather, we should help, we should make sure that it is getting recognized as a separate crime. We should make sure that it is recognized as a separate crime instead of getting included, right? Not be treated in its own right as crime against humanity instead of assimilating it with racism. And the whole idea, how do we eliminate B and between B and D? So B is talking about just the dilution part of it, that the main focus again here shifted to racism. But the passage is entirely talking about casteism. So this is catching the crux of it, that okay, because if uh, here the idea is that it should not be included, but we should put it in special category of caste-based discrimination. We should put it in special category of caste-based so we should put it in special separate category instead of just adding it in, instead of including it in racism-related crime. That is the main idea here for the question number one. Have you all understood that how do you attempt question number one? Now, if we move on to other questions, let us move on to other question. So, when you look at other question, second question, so the answer for the first question would be D. Second, you would see that it is a GK based question. So it is talking about which of the following became the first city in United uh, States of America to explicitly ban discrimination on the basis of caste. That is your second question. Here you need to have some clear understanding of the concepts. Here you need to have, so whenever you get a particular topic, you can also expect questions coming from that topic, from the GK part of it as well. So now, since it is talking about the discrimination, the caste based discrimination, so it is also mentioning that, all right, which city in United States became the first city for to explicitly ban discrimination on the basis of caste. So if you read around it, you will see that it was Seattle that became the first city to ban caste-based discrimination in India. Sorry, in USA. It happened in 2023. Now, how do we get this information? This information is not available in your passage. This information is something which is general knowledge. So this you need to know about the events that are happening there. So something that you need to know about the events that are happening. So that is the GK part of it. English critical reasoning part, you can derive it from the passage itself. But when it comes to GK, current affairs, you need to know. So whenever you're reading any news, whenever you're preparing for any news, try to cover that news in depth. Try to cover that news properly. That is going to be your, that is how you go and you solve the second question. Let's move on to the third question. Again, let's try to understand the third question. It is talking about how does the author respond to following assertion? So there's an assertion given where when there are internal mechanism for tackling the problem, why should it be internationalized? Right? So this is an assertion given. Now again it is talking about author's response towards this assertion, right? So here when you find such keywords, when you find such lines being taken from the passage itself, you have to go back and you have to refer to those lines. Or all right. So let's go back to our passage. It is mentioned in here, internationalization of the issue. So here it mentions that government of India has opposed it because it goes against the, we may be poor, but we have a noble civilization image, that it has been determinedly cultivating in international forums for last 50 years. It does not say so, of course. So it says instead of internationalizing, the issue is unnecessary for two rather spurious reason. One is that India has constitutionally prohibited casteism and caste discrimination and has enacted laws. So when you read this part, you will be able to understand that what are the reasons being given and the argument as well. So now once I have gone back, I've cross-referred, I'll come back and I'll see that what author is trying to respond to this particular assertion about. So first is caste-based discrimination is equally addressed through prohibition on extrajudicial executions and custodial violence. Next is your caste-based discrimination is not equally addressed through prohibition on extrajudicial execution and custodial violence. Is still a concern for international human rights since national laws are routinely violated. And does not need to be internationalized because the possibility of internal mechanism have not been exhausted. So when you look at these options, you try to eliminate these options by looking at the author's argument. Author is arguing about the fact that since the national laws are getting violated routinely, then that is one of the reason why we need to we need to ensure that this there is a recognition of caste-based discrimination. Author is arguing towards the fact that caste-based discrimination should be recognized. So that is why we go with C as an answer. All right. Now, moving to question number 4, it is talking about, according to author, what is the core motivation behind the government of India's opposition to recognizing casteism in the category of racism related discrimination at UN? So, again, it is talking about author's viewpoint, core motivation behind the government of India's opposition. So, it is asking that when author is mentioning about this passage, what could be the core motivation of the government when government is opposing this recognition of casteism? So it is again talking about so Indian constitution and laws already provide internal mechanism to address untouchability. Issue of casteism is located to Indian subcontinent and is not international. This is nowhere mentioned in the passage. Addressing casteism as international forum would affect India's image as a fighter against racism. This we have seen in the passage. This we have seen that it is clearly mentioned in the passage. All right. And the last one is not the same as racism. This is not India's argument. So when you go back to the passage, when you go back to the part about the passage which is talking about it, you will see that when we are mentioning about the government, when we are talking about the fact that, okay, uh, India's image as a fighter against racism, that is likely to get confused if untouchability is talked about in international forum. So that is one of the reason why India is not the reason which author has expressed here. So then we go and we mark C as our answer. I'll give you a tip here. All right. So if you would have seen for the three questions that we have taken up for the verbal reasoning part, you will see that all these three questions are something which you have derived directly from the passage. So reading, understanding what is given in the passage, and cross-referring the passage is also very important. At the same time, you have to manage your time limit as well. How do you manage your time limit? You try to give 10 seconds, 20 seconds for the GK based questions, and rest of the time you try to give it for the passage. So you have to take a proper time off, like you are solving one particular passage in not more than 8 to 9 minutes. Whatever question you are at in 8 9 minutes, you are supposed to leave that passage and then move to the next one. Otherwise, you will not be able to complete the entire paper. So make sure that you are keeping maximum 8 to 9 minutes for one passage and then you move on to the next passage. All right. Moving to the next question, which is your what does author mean by internationalizing the issue in the first paragraph? So it has already referred that this is what you have to see. So when we saw that internationalizing the issue, we go back and again you see that, okay, you read this particular part, that it is talking about instead of internationalizing the issue is unnecessary for two reasons. So it is mentioned here. Now what is this internationalization of issue? It is asking you that what is the meaning of this part? So first of all, it is stating that raising the issue of casteism at international forum, that is the first option. Then discussing the issue of casteism in international media, addressing the issue of casteism as a concern internal to Indian Republic, labeling casteism as an issue that affects everyone across the world. Now, when we are talking about internationalization of the issue, in the first passage, author is mentioning or author is talking about the fact from Indian perspective, right? So, first of all, labeling casteism as an issue that affect uh, everyone across the world is something which is not clearly stated. So what we just through bringing the attention or through highlighting the issue at international forum, what we are trying to do, we are trying to draw attention, we are trying to raise this issue. Okay, we are trying to raise this issue, bring it to notice. So labeling will come at a very later stage. Similarly, if you look at option C, if it is a problem which is associated to Indian Republic, there's no need for an entire forum to sit up, right? That is again there. If we look at option B, which is talking about discussing the issue of casteism in international media, we will discuss it when it is recognized in first place that this is an issue. So we are talking about raising this issue in first place. So this issue needs to be raised, internationalization of the issue, understanding that this issue requires the I would say attention. So that is why A is your correct answer. Again, for the question number 6, you would see that this is again a GK based question. So it is asking about which of the following was appointed by the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2023 as the sixth special rapporteur on contemporary forum of racism. So your answer here would be Ashwini KP. So she's from India and she took her office on 1st November 2022. All right. Now, again, for the GK based question, I would suggest be well versed with past 1 year current affairs, the events that have happened, and try to read in depth about it. So, when you are doing that in depth reading, you're all set, you're good to go. All right. Okay, moving to seventh question. So it is talking about which of the following statement, if true, would undermine the author's central argument. So we have identified author's central argument. Now it is talking about undermining it. So you have to read it very carefully. All right. So we have to see that, okay, caste-based discrimination is substantively the same as and not different from race-based discrimination. All right. Caste based discrimination is substantively different from race based discrimination, thus, cannot be treated as racism. Casteism is also a crime against humanity, and you see that casteism affects a large percentage of world population, therefore suitable for international mechanism. Look at something here. When you look at option C and option C and D are in support of author's argument that there's a need to recognize casteism, right? So these options are straight away eliminated because we have to undermine, we have to go against author's central argument. That is the main crux. Now let us look at option number B. It is talking about caste-based discrimination is substantially different from race-based discrimination and thus cannot be treated as racism. All right. But the first option is talking about is not so caste is substantively the same and not different from race-based discrimination. Now, author is stating that so when we look at author's argument, author is talking about these two types of discrimination being completely different from each other, and that is why there is a need for recognition. So you will see that even B is supporting author's side. But when if C is true that both of them are part and parcel of similar kind of discrimination, are same, then in that case the whole central idea of the author's argument or the central argument of the author, where author is saying that okay, we need to give it a separate recognition, is null and void, because anyways if it is same, then we have recognized racism as a crime. So why this casteism will automatically be within racism. So that is why your correct answer as per your question would be A. All right, moving to the next question. Again, a GK based question, which is talking about which of the following cases recently covered in media relate to caste based atrocities against a young Dalit girl. All right. So if you look at the first option, this was related to the pressure cooker bomb blast that happened. Second one is where we see that a Dalit girl was gang raped and murdered. Third is related to a women vet who was gang raped and murdered in Hyderabad. And this option D is talking about three Dalit men were burned alive for cow slaughter. So, as per our question, atrocities against a young Dalit girl, your B is your correct answer. Now, moving to the next question, which of the following statement, if true, would reinforce the author's central argument? Now, again, you see that if this argument is true, it would reinforce the author's central argument. Make sure that you are emphasizing on these words, you are understanding that it is talking about strengthening the argument or weakening the argument, and accordingly, you are selecting your answers. So, let us read all the options. The first option is talking about Parliament of India enacts the Caste-Based Discrimination Act to outlaw caste-based discrimination and atrocities. Next is your rate of prosecution of atrocities and caste-based discrimination is lower as compared to other cases in legal system. Third is your international human right instruments have no effect on actual cases of extrajudicial executions and custodial violence. And last option is that India's image stand to be tarnished among the international community if they become aware of scale of untouchability and casteism in India. So let us look at these options, and let us try to understand if it is in support of author's argument or not. So first is stating that okay, India has taken enough provisions to outlaw this evil. So again, clearly it is against author's argument. All right. We'll skip B for now. Let's come to option C. Option C is talking about international human rights instruments have no effect. So if it does not have any effect, there's no point of recognition. All right. Option D is stating that India's image will be tarnished. So again, no, not supporting author's argument. B is actually highlighting the problem that the rate of prosecution of atrocities or caste-based discrimination is lower as compared to other cases in legal system. So this is an actual problem which is happening, and that is why we need to draw the attention. And that is why your correct answer is your option B. All right. That is how you eliminate option. That is how you see that which option is suiting in, which option is not suiting in as per the question asked. Moving on to the 10th question for this passage. So it is talking about which of the following is not an argument raised by author in the above passage. So something which is outside the context of the passage. First is talking about the struggle against racism is a phenomena which should not be equated with untouchability. Of course, the entire passage is talking about it. Second is national laws are sometimes effective in addressing human right violation. Okay. Third is the effect of Indian Dalit groups to get to get the UN to recognize casteism as a form of race-based discrimination is a move in the right direction. That is the whole argument of the author. All right. Uh, so, एक second. Okay. Option D is the author has raised none of the above arguments. So, let us look at these options clearly. All right. First is talking about struggle against racism as a phenomena which should not be equated with untouchability. The passage is rather talking about casteism. The passage is not talking about racism per se. It is touching upon racism, but the entire passage is talking about the casteism. So when we argue that struggle against racism should not be equated, it was the other way around. So this was not something which was raised as an argument. Option B is national laws are effective. So this is not mentioned in the passage anyway. We are only talking about India's image. We are talking about the problems that are there, but we are not mentioning that it is effective or not. Rather, we are just highlighting this issue that these are the things which are still happening. Similarly, if you look at option C, it is stating that effort of Indian Dalit group to get the UN to recognize casteism as a form of race is a move in the right direction. Whether it is a move in a right direction or wrong direction is not something which is mentioned in the passage, or which is not something which the author is arguing. Author is only arguing that uh, we need to uh, we need to recognize casteism as a separate form of discrimination and not within the race based discrimination. So that is why C is also not something which was raised by the author. So here, if you look at all of these options, D seems like a more passable option in this case because all of these are completely not within the perspective of what author has raised. So so this was about the first passage. When we look at the passage, I will tell you something here. before I move to part B of it, that when we are trying to solve the passages, always try to focus on reading all the options. The best way to reach to the correct answer is going to be elimination. Try to eliminate as many options as you can. If you are able to eliminate options, you are good to go. You are good to start, good to reach the right answer. Like you might have seen in the 10th question itself. So if I saw that, okay, option D is talking about none of the argument, and these arguments are not making sense, so I can eliminate all of these options and reach to the correct answer. And that is how you mark your answers for all these questions. For GK, for the past 1 year, the events that have happened, you need to be well versed with the depth of it, right? So that is how you answer these questions. Now, what I want all of you to do is read second, third, and fourth passage, solve these questions, and tell me how many you got right. All right. And for those questions which were incorrect, what did you miss out on? Now, let us move to the second part of it. I will just give you a heads up here. When you're solving the question paper, okay, when you will get the question paper, try to start from part B. Why am I uh, mentioning this, that you should start from part B? See, that for part B, the number of questions that you get is approximately 5 to 6 questions. 5 questions from legal aptitude and 1 question from your based on your analytical ability. But each question is of 12 marks for legal aptitude, and the analytical ability part is 15 marks question. You are not in a position to leave any of these questions because they carry a lot of marks. But let's say if you are not able to solve one particular passage, at least you can mark something, right? But if you skip or you are not in a position to write a particular answer, straight away you will lose 12 marks or 15 marks, which is a huge loss, which can be a factor which can determine whether you're still competing or not. So that is why start with this, manage that time. Okay, divide that particular time that I have to finish this in 75 minutes, no matter what, 75 minutes to maximum 80 minutes. I am going to give approximately 5 minutes to 7 minutes to solve frame and write one particular answer, not more than that. And that is how you move forward with it. So let us see some answers here. So I'll show you something for this. So I want all of you to read this first question. So if we read this question, here you will see that you don't really need any prior legal expertise. You don't really need any prior legal knowledge. What you need is understanding the information given and applying it to the factual situation, and then structurizing your answer. That is where your scores are tested. That is where your marks are tested. All right. So I have solved this for you all. I'll just show you how you can structurize your answer. Just give me a minute. Let me reshare my screen. All right. So whenever we are solving part B, we have to focus upon something which is very important for all of us, is that you have to make sure that you are writing all the answers very clearly. You're highlighting the relevant part. One tip that I often give to my students for solving part B is that try to put it in pointers. When you are putting it in pointers, you are in a position to get better marks. You are in a position to present your argument more clearly in a better manner. That is something that I always advise to my students. And all right, so I have added the answers here for you all. Just waiting for the screen to get visible. Yes, all right. So when you look at my screen here, this is the doc. So for the first question, okay, let me just zoom it in a little bit. For the first particular question, how do we actually start writing a particular answer when we are writing it? All right. Identify the issue first. Okay. The first and the most important aspect is that you need to figure out what is the problem, what is the issue. Here you will see that the doctor has disclosed the sex, the gender, the sex of the fetus, which was something which was prohibited under the act, the given act, is stating that you are not supposed to disclose the gender, the sex of the fetus under any circumstance. So you're not supposed to reveal the sex of the fetus. And the objective of this law was to prevent uh, s- uh, uh, female fetus abortion. All right, this was the objective, right? Now, for once you identified the issue, you will identify the relevant laws that are there. So we have identified the act which is there, the objective of the act, and how we are interpreting it. Now, since I have identified the issue, since I have identified the relevant laws which are given here, again highlighting one thing, you don't need to apply any extra knowledge. Whatever information is given there in your question, that is going to be the base for your answer. Now, you are supposed to that, okay, I am applying the law to the fact, and you reach to this particular option that, okay, we have seen that the doctor has determined the sex. The doctor, however, the doctor did not explicitly stated the sex of the child, but this was required. Why? Because of the medical issues. So intention was to inform the parents about the medical issues and not about the sex of the child per se, right? So we will also look at the broader part of it, the purpose as well, right? And then you move forward. Now jot down one thing which is very important. All right. Sometimes what students do is they just pick up one side and they put up the answers supporting that side and they're good to go. But don't do that. A structured answer always have arguments on both the sides. You will not pick one side. You will try to present your answers, your arguments from both the sides. So if let's say you are defending Pinto, or let's say if you are arguing against Dr. Pinto, what are the possible points that are there? So put up your arguments from both the side. Now once everything is done, you try to conclude it. Now conclusion will always have two parts. Conclusion, first of all, will be a balanced observation of everything. After that, you will also put up your opinion, right? So, conclusion will always come with a balanced viewpoint that, okay, considering both the side, this could happen, this could not happen. Like you will see that court may do this. However, the intent was this, so this can also result in acquittal. So, you will always try to reach out to a balanced answer. But towards the end, you will also express your opinion, but try to keep it little diplomatic instead of going too much into picking one side. All right. So when you structurize your answer like this, you are showing that, okay, you are understanding you can pinpoint at the issue, you can pinpoint at the relevant laws, you can logically use the information and the laws which are given and reach out to the correct answer, and reach out to certain arguments from both the sides. You can think about arguments from both the sides and then you can reach out to a conclusion. Right. So whenever you're writing your answer should start with structure, law, application, argument, and conclusion. That is how you proceed with your answer. Always try to give always try to present both the sides argument. Always try to present arguments from both the side. Okay. Keep your tone neutral. Don't get too emotional while you're writing the answer. And just try to close your answer in maximum 250 to 300 words, because you will get the space in the writing space in the question paper itself. So just try to close your answer in that writing space itself. All right. So similarly, let's go and let's solve question number 2 for all of you. So you see that you have the writing space. So you have to write it here only. All right. Now read the second problem and we'll try to solve it. There is third problem as well in the first sample paper. So in this, the third problem, I want all of you to give it a try using this structure that I have prepared for all of you. So just try to give a structure to try to write the third answer. If you want, you can copy paste your answer in the comment section. And yes, we can review it for you if you are copy pasting it in the comment section. So, coming to question number two, similarly, I have identified the issue where we are talking about what will come under the category of manufacturing. Now, I am applying the principle given by the court, the precedent which are there, and then I start applying it to the fact that this is how it goes on. That if the chopped vegetables are there, so vegetable has not changed the form. But same time it is also helping the customer activity wise and all. Now I have again gone ahead and presented both the arguments, right? You can just if you want to read everything properly, you can just pause this video and then you can read this. So I have structurized your argument accordingly, and then finally I have concluded it. So when I'm concluding it, so I have mentioned a balanced viewpoint here. I have tried to cover a balanced viewpoint for this answer. And that is how you proceed with it. You always try to give a balanced opinion of it. You always try to structurize your answer, giving a balanced opinion of it. All right. So that is there for your second sample problem. For your third sample problem, this is a task that I want to allot to all of you. Solve this and come back and let me know your answer. I will now move on to the third part of it, which is your analytical ability testing. So you will not get a factual situation in this. You will get something which is more of understanding your opinion about a key controversy which is happening. So here you will see that, all right, there is a statement which is given that when a country needs the court to save democracy, democracy may lose whichever way the court rules. All right. So you have to give your argument. Again, just one thing, if they have asked you to give your argument, you will not sit and pick one side and argue. The structure will remain almost same. You will always present arguments from both sides. However, you can end the answer by putting up your opinion, but that should again be very neutral. That should not lean towards one side, because then you are this is what is actually tested here. How well you can structurize these answers, how well you can go on and think from an all-rounder perspective, right? So when we talk about this question, how do you start? You start uh, by talking about this, that okay, all right, I have highlighted that you start by mentioning that these are the things that we are going to discuss. You start by setting up a context for it. You start by setting up a context about the entire discussion. Then you move forward. You mention the issues that you will going to highlight, or that you will be touching upon. You present the arguments from both the sides. Then you finally put up a balanced analysis of the argument, and you conclude by putting up your conclusion here, putting up your answer, putting up your viewpoint here. So that is how you conclude the answer. So it should be introduction, issues, arguments for and against, balanced view, and conclusion. Just to show you how this work, I have actually framed this answer for you all. All right. So I'll just take it up from the next page and I will just scroll it up on the screen. So can you see that this is how you structurize this answer? I start with an introduction where where I have tried to highlight that, all right, this is the question, or this is the context, and these are the issues that I'm going to understand here, that I'm going to touch upon here. Then you go and you present arguments. Presenting arguments from both the side is non-negotiable. Here, if you know certain incidents associated to the point that is being asked, let's say any case laws, any particular incident, you can put it in the form of example, because that will bring more credibility, that will bring more understanding. So putting certain events in the form of example is going to be is again going to be something great for you. But if you don't know, that's all right. Now comes the analysis part. So here I have analyzed, here what I have done is, since I have presented the argument from both the side, now I have tried to analyze it and come to a conclusion about it, that all right, this is the observation that it is necessary, but it is problematic as well. There is a need for harmony, there is a need for balancing it, and hence the conclusion is going to be this. So this is how you structurize this answer. All right. So if you want, you can just put a pause this video and you can check the answers here for all of you. So yes, that is going to be all for sample paper one from my end. Now, what the task that I have given you in between? Try solving rest of the passages for part A for sample paper one. For part B, try solving number 3 that is pending. Write your answers and yes, let me know how you have fared in this examination. Similarly, we'll be solving another such sample paper. Stay tuned. Make sure that you have subscribed to our channel so that you don't miss out on any of the updates. And if you found this video helpful for you towards your preparation, make sure that you hit the like button so that we also get motivated to bring such videos for you. And yes, see you all super soon in the next video. So yes, that's all from my end. All the very best for your preparation. Thank you so much, everyone.